The most expensive series in baseball, and a $790,000 arm just owned its first game.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Harry Ruiz, that's Travis Rodgers, and it's time for Locked On Dodgers. On today's show, a big money star who might be pressing a little bit at the plate. A trend that's quietly creeping into this offense, and it's not a good one. But first, a breakout performance that might be forcing some uncomfortable rotation questions because there's a dilemma. Wrobo over Roki? Justin Wrobleski didn't just pitch well in the series opener against the Mets, a 4-0 win. He controlled an entire game. 8 scoreless innings, barely any traffic, no walks, and honestly, it never even felt like the Mets had a chance. This wasn't overpowering. This wasn't flashy. This, Travis, was surgical by Wrobo.
Yeah, he was absolutely terrific. It's really as good as you could actually hope for. A couple of hits over 8 innings, 2 strikeouts. He's not going to wipe out a bunch of guys via the strikeout, but it was as commanding of a performance as you're going to see, because the big number for me, Harry, and you mentioned it, zero walks. He was never in any trouble, and it's hard to get in trouble. Look, in the major leagues, when you don't walk guys, the pitching is so good now that even somebody that is not an all-star level player, or at least at this point in his career, an all-star level player like Justin Wrobleski, when they're on, that's it. You're going to lose. And the only way that it's not going to happen is if you give guys a lot of free passes. And then all of a sudden, a little broken bat hit, a bloop and a blast, as they like to say. Something like that can turn, a dominating night into a so-so night. But he didn't do any of those things. He was absolutely lights out. It was an incredible performance. He was in complete control of everything he did. And my only note on the entire thing was, I was really disappointed they didn't send him back out there for the 9th inning to try and close the whole thing, because his pitch count was very modest. 89 pitches through 8 innings. Just by comparison, Roki Sasaki threw 94 in 4 innings the day before. Robleski looked fresh. He looked sharp. And the way that modern baseball is played nowadays, complete games really don't come around very often. And that may be the only opportunity Justin Wrobleski has to throw a complete game, has an opportunity to maybe throw a shutout, and just that they didn't give him the chance to go out there, see if he gets in any sort of trouble, and then bring in Scott or whoever else it may have been that you wanted to get a little work last night. But Wrobleski was terrific. I just wish he would have gotten a chance to go all 9.
And it's no surprise when you talk about Dave Roberts. He's a manager who, when he starts seeing his pitch count for his guy on the mound go high, he's not afraid of taking.
It wasn't high. That's the thing. Like, had it been over 100, sure, but he still had a little runway left.
For a young arm like Robleski, he's not going to risk him, especially in a game on April 13th, early in the season. He's not going to risk him going out there for an extra inning where, yes, 100 pitches used to be the number where everybody used to be like, okay, right there, that's the border where over 100, you're risking. Under 100, you should be good. Nowadays, Travis, when a pitcher goes over 80, it's already like, ooh, this guy's already up there. You got to be careful. Is he going out for the next inning? You could sense the frustration, though, like even with Joe Davis on the broadcast when they showed the camera and Robleski already had his jacket on, and it's like, oh, okay, well, they're going to go to the bullpen. You wanted him to be able to have that opportunity to close things. And look, if he had one run on him, I understand. It's like, hey, man, there's nothing more that you're going to be able to do. Let the bullpen take care of business. You're good. When you're talking about the potential of a complete game shutout, yes, I'm frustrated that Roberts didn't let him go out there, but at the same time, I understand the way that he is. Like I've said, I've seen him pull pitchers with no hitters in the 7th, 8th innings because the pitch count starts getting up there and he doesn't feel comfortable with it. So I'm not surprised at all that he did it out there. But the impressive thing here is 2 strikeouts. A lot of it was contact. A lot of it was ground balls to second, to short, pop-ups to center field. It was simple stuff that he was just doing. He wasn't in need to get guys into a strikeout mode. He got ahead in counts. He put them on uncomfortable positions, and that's what they needed to do. The Mets were putting the ball in play, but that didn't matter because nothing was hit with authority. And Justin Wrobleski right here, Travis, he's making that conversation an important one. Is it him? Is it Roki Sasaki? Because Sasaki was gifted a spot in the rotation. Robleski, he's forcing the conversation here. He has pitched 13 innings in his 2 starts between the one in Toronto and the one last night against the Mets. Roki Sasaki in 3 starts has pitched 13 innings, 14 hits, 9 earned runs, 10 total walks. Meanwhile, Robleski, like I said, 13 innings in those 2 starts, he has been dominant. 4 hits, 1 earned run, 4 walks total.
Yeah, look, I just kind of finish the thought on Robleski coming out of the game. I'm not surprised that they did it. I'm disappointed that they did it, just to kind of split that hair a little bit, because I would really love somebody to show me the difference between 89 pitches and 104. Like, if anybody had any idea how to keep these guys healthy, no one would ever get hurt. No one knows anything. This idea that if you stop here, everything will be fine. Nolan Ryan threw 150 pitches a night and went and pitched 25 seasons. There is no rhyme or reason to, if we stop here, everybody's safe. We've made these artificial barriers about where people can go. And I understand it, that this is how they've decided to do it. But is there any team that has more arm injuries than the Dodgers have? I mean, they've got more than just about anybody along the way. So it doesn't make any sense to me. A chance for a guy like Robleski to get a complete game shutout. Shoot, that may be the high water mark of his entire career. Maybe not. Maybe he'll get a chance to go out there and do it again. But it was a missed opportunity in my estimation. As far as his lack of strikeouts, I think that's why the pitch count was so low. It takes a lot of pitches to strike people out. You got to throw a lot of balls to strike people out. You got to get people to go out of the zone. And the only way to get to do that is to pound the zone. So that he pitched to contact, you just don't see it a ton anymore, but it's a pretty good representation of how well it can actually work. That keep the ball down, throw a lot of strikes, make guys make contact the way you want them to make contact early in counts. You get a lot of ground balls. You get a lot of soft contact. He had a couple, Miggy Rowe made a couple of really nice plays. Muncy made a play. Robleski made a really nice play on a ball hit back at him. It was just a really solid defensive effort across the board. I thought he was great. As far as the comp between he and Roki, I really don't think it's much of a competition. He's better than Roki Sasaki right now. There's really not an argument to be made to the contrary. Unfortunately for Robleski, it's not nearly a meritocracy at this point. It will be ultimately as you get deeper into the season. The guys that are pitching the best will pitch the most. But right now, they're trying to develop Sasaki. They're trying to build up his confidence. They're trying to find a way to get him to be effective at the major league level. It hasn't happened yet. I still believe that it's in there and that they'll probably find it. But I would imagine Robleski is frustrated knowing that he is the better pitcher between the two at the moment, and he's not going to get the guaranteed starts where Sasaki is for now. This stuff always changes. I think that, I don't think Sasaki's on the verge of getting sent out, but it's coming. I don't think it's another start or 2 away, but it might be 3 or 4 starts away if he continues to struggle.
Yeah, because when you talk about a guy who didn't allow a base runner until the 5th inning when Jorge Polanco got a single to second base.
Yes, just
Exactly, where it was like the positioning of the infielders. If it had been the normal one, it would have been an easy out. And then still, next guy up at bat, Francisco Alvarez, double play. And then you don't have a base runner until the 8th inning. That's crazy. And with 2 outs, Francisco Alvarez got a single to center field, which was the first ball that was hit that you were like, oh, yeah, that one right there is a single. He got up to 90 pitches through 8 innings. That was old school in the modern game. That was like something you don't see very often. And it was great to see it with a guy that was a youngin' coming up the Dodgers system, getting opportunities, who struggled a little bit in college, who made his way into the big leagues as an 11th round draft pick. And here he is. And that's what makes this Dodgers organization so great. Yes, we got Yoshinobu Yamamoto today. Yes, we got Shohei Ohtani tomorrow. But the one game that the Mets probably felt they had their better chance at winning, they just were shut out 8 innings by a young guy named Justin Wrobleski, where the most expensive series in baseball, it was one of the cheapest guys in the whole team that got him out.
Yeah, guys develop at different rates and guys come from different places. And sure, your better guys are going to come out of the top rounds of the draft and you're going to find some guys later on. I hope that the Robleski outing is kind of a roadmap for somebody like Sasaki, because when you put the two guys, you do the overlay of the stuff, it's really not close. Like Sasaki's stuff is much better than Robleski's stuff, but Robleski knows how to pitch much more than Sasaki does at this point. It's putting those two things together that'll give Sasaki a chance to have some success. I was thrilled for Robleski last night, listening to him speak after the game. You could tell he was pleased with how he had performed. And, this is a guy that was an important part of what they did last year in the postseason. This is a guy that got big outs for them. He's a guy that's going to get big outs for him moving forward, whether that's as a starting pitcher, whether that's as a middle guy, whether that's as some role that we still can't foresee at this point. I don't know, but he's proven himself to be a valuable member of this team. And he looked terrific last night, just as good as you could possibly hope for. And he pitched, it wasn't a, Paul Skeens, 18 strikeout, wipe you out, no chance, 99 high in the zone. It was pitching. And we don't see nearly as much of that as we used to. It was fun to watch.
At the end of the day, what do you want? Just get outs. It doesn't matter how they come, just get them. And Robleski is producing right now, while Roki, he came in with all the hype and he's struggling right now. So my question to everybody watching, listening to you, who do you trust more to give you quality innings today, Robleski or Roki? Drop your take in the comments or let us know on any of our social networks, or hit up the Locked On Dodgers listener line. That's 2793-LOCKED. I want to hear where you stand. Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, the Dodgers are still winning, but there's a trend building that could absolutely burn them later. The strikeouts, they're piling up.
It is tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is, well, a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient. Sitting in a waiting room with a giant stack of papers, emailing back and forth, and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, your TurboTax expert gets to work you every dollar that you deserve, while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person, and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to turbotax.com/logo to find a store near you and book your appointment.
Baseball is finally back, and to celebrate, I'm giving you a full month of the Everydayer Club for free. Go to LockedOnDodgers.supercast.com and use the code FINALLY. You'll unlock every episode ad-free and get access to our private listener group chat. Tap the link in the show notes and use the code FINALLY to claim your first free month. K's piling up. Should we be worried? Look, the Dodgers offense looks elite on the surface. Runs, they come. Firepower, obvious. Lineup depth, ridiculous. But underneath, there's something you can't ignore anymore. The strikeouts. In nearly half of their games this season, they've struck out 10 or more times, including last night with 12 strikeouts. They won 4-0. 3 of those runs came in on Andy Pages' 3-run home run in the third inning. And after that, nobody else came across the plate. Travis, this is not occasional. This is becoming part of their identity.
Yeah, it is. You're right. They strike out a lot. They got a lot of guys that can hit home runs, and with home runs come a lot of strikeouts. Ohtani is Ohtani, but Ohtani strikes out a lot, not just a little bit. He strikes out a lot. Max Muncy is going to strike out a lot. Teoscar Hernandez is going to strike out. You have some guys that are less likely to strike out. Freddie Freeman is not a big strikeout guy, and Will Smith is not a big strikeout guy. But you've got, Andy Pages, as hot as he is right now, and God bless Andy Pages for continuing to just tear the cover off the ball. But he'll strike out a lot. Like they've got guys in their lineup that will swing and miss. Kyle Tucker, who I know we're going to talk about a little later, maybe not as much of a strikeout guy. I think he's struggling a little bit right now, but this is how they do it. It's one of the few things that I think is scary about the Dodger lineup when it comes to short series. Over the course of a season, they're going to hit enough home runs, they're going to get enough extra base hits that it's going to mitigate whatever strikeout bug they may have. The problem is, In a short series, when you only got to win 3 of 5 or 4 of 7, that strikeout bug shows up at the wrong time. You run into a pitcher that's really good at making you swing and miss. All of a sudden, you're not scoring 5 or 6 runs a game. You're scoring 1 or 2, and that's very different than what they've been putting up. I don't think it's something you're not going to tell Shohei Ohtani to swing the bat differently. You're not going to tell Max Muncy to swing the bat differently. They got some guys with some big strikeout variants in their games. They also got a bunch of guys that can hit a bunch of home runs, and that's just the way that it goes with this team. They're kind of boom and bust offensively, and right now they're oddly enough kind of both. They're leading the league in home runs, so they're 12-4. They have the amazing record the way that they played. They're going to be fine, I think, but that strikeout bug is something that in a short series can beat you. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, 7 games in double-digit strikeouts so far this season. It's no coincidence. 3 of their 4 losses have come in those games where they've struck out in double digits. In that 7-game span, 81 strikeouts. The full season, 141 strikeouts, which is kind of middle of the pack. They're tied for 12th right there, but there's also that lack of discipline at times at the plate that just gets frustrating in big moments. That you've seen a guy like Shohei Ohtani go up at bat with runners in scoring position, and he just sometimes doesn't even have a competitive at bat. And that's the frustrating part, where it's like, guys, let's have a productive out. Let's do something positive here, because maybe right now a run doesn't seem big, but then you add it at the end of the game. If it becomes a close game, it could end up being the difference between a win and a loss. It could end up being the difference between having home field advantage against the Blue Jays in the World Series and then having to play more games on the road and closing that series in Toronto, in Canada, instead of LA. So yes, I understand 1 out of 162. We always say it, but sometimes that 1 out of 162 ends up being the difference between home field advantage, between a divisional crown, like when they lost the division to the Giants not a couple years back. It ends up being big. So strikeouts, that just shows you, like you said, they're relying heavily on the long ball. You're killing rallies before they start, and against elite pitching, that's where it's not going to work. And what do you face in October every single time you're out there? Elite pitching. Right now, who's leading the Dodgers in strikeouts? If you had to take a guess, Travis, who would it be?
I would assume it's Ohtani or Muncy, one of those two guys.
Ding, ding, ding. You had number 2 first and number 1. Max Muncy, he leads the pack with 22. Shohei Ohtani, 19. Kyle Tucker, 17. Teoscar Hernandez and Andy Pages, 16. And Alex Freeland has 14 so far for the boys in blue. Those are big numbers, with it being right now April 14th.
They are big numbers, but again, and look, let me start by saying this. I tend to agree with you that I think the spike in strikeouts is not a lot of fun to watch, and it's interesting to think about, rallies and productive outs like you're talking about. The baseball that I grew up watching and enjoying and learning was about that. The flip side of this is, and I understand it, I don't necessarily like watching it as much, but I understand the point is, Max Muncy struck out 6 times in the last 2 games. And then the game before that, he hit 3 home runs. This is the boom and bust of guys like this. I'm not going to get Max Muncy to shorten up and try to hit a ground ball to the right side. I'm trying to get Max Muncy to hit one halfway up the right field pavilion. That's how they've decided to play. And the price of that is a whole bunch of strikeouts. The price of that is maybe a bad at-bat here or there. I agree with you that maybe having a more productive at-bat here and there would make a lot of sense. The problem is, you're not going to get that from Ohtani. I don't ever want Ohtani to do anything other than to try to hit it as far as he can. That's what he's here to do. That's why he hit 55 home runs last year, and that's why he's Shohei Ohtani. It's some of these other guys that are further down, like Alex Freeland should not be close to the top in strikeouts. Number 1, he doesn't play every day, so that's a bad sign. Number 2, you're not a 30 home run bat, or at least you're not at this point in your life. So I think that it's more about who is striking out a lot. If Ohtani leads the league in strikeouts, okay. I mean, fine. I don't really care. If Muncy's up there near the top, that's fine, as long as he's hitting his 30 home runs. But they've decided to do this. Strikeouts are up across baseball. It's the way that it's played now, that a strikeout used to be kind of shameful back in the day. Now it's the same thing as grounding out to third base. Nobody really cares anymore, and it's here to stay, unfortunately. I'm with you. I don't love watching it night after night, but that's the way it's played now.
Yeah, and Freeland, for example, he won the second base competition because of his plate discipline, and there he is, almost one of the top 5 guys for the Dodgers in strikeouts so far. So that's the fine line that this team is walking right now. Yes, they're explosive, but also a little volatile when it comes to striking out. So my question: do the strikeouts concern you at all, or do you think it's just the cost of having a power-loaded lineup? Drop your answer in the comments on YouTube or hit me up on social. Let's talk about that. All right, next on Locked On Dodgers, is Kyle Tucker just off to a slow start, or is he actually pressing at the plate? If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It tracks all your subscriptions in one spot and can help you cancel the ones that you don't need with just a few taps. You can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Are you new here? Welcome. Everydayers, you already know you're the heartbeat of our show. It's easy and free to help us out. Subscribe and like our content on YouTube. Drop a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify and hit up the Locked On Dodgers listener line, 2793-LOCKED. That's 279-356-2533. Kyle Tucker, pressing or just rusty? This is where things get interesting when it comes to the new bat in the Dodgers lineup, because if you look at the surface numbers, Kyle Tucker hasn't been terrible, but if you watch some of his at-bats, something feels off right now, Travis, and the data backs it up. He's striking out more than usual. He's chasing more pitches, especially low, and he's swinging more aggressively early in counts. That's not his game. This is a guy known for being controlled, selective, and disciplined. So when you see him expanding the zone, that tells you something.
I think this is a time for a Yogi Berra quote, right? That Yogi Berra famously had the line, 90% of baseball is mental and the other half is physical, right? That the 90% of Kyle Tucker is getting to him a little bit. Look, I get that he's a former World Series champion. I get that he's an all-star. I get that he just signed a contract that's going to pay him $60 million a year over 4 years. He's also a human being. He's also somebody that when you take a contract like that, when you join a team like this, the expectations go through the roof. And even if you have proven to be a very good major league player, which Kyle Tucker has proven, the desire, the impulse to want to validate and say, see, I am worth this is real. Having Shohei Ohtani hit right in front of you, having Mookie Betts hit right behind you, that is a different animal than he has experienced before. Playing in front of 50,000 people every night is a different animal. Now, the good, and I think it's nothing more than him just pressing a little bit. What's really surprising to me and what he's done so far, the strikeouts, like you mentioned, and the other thing is he only has 2 extra base hits. He's not hitting the ball hard. He has 1 home run, he has 1 double, and the rest of it is just kind of scratch hits here and there. He hasn't looked particularly good. I think that's a big part of it as well. It's kind of twofold. One, I don't think Dodger fans care at all about Kyle Tucker, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that they're not looking at him. Had he signed a deal like that with the San Diego Padres, the San Francisco Giants, the Mets, or something, like, it'd be like, Toronto. Hey, dude, Toronto, like, let's go. We just gave you those. With the Dodgers, it's like, you'll be all right. Just take your time. And no one's booing him. Like, you saw Bo Bichette got booed the opening weekend in New York when he got off to a slow start with his new team. Nobody in Dodger Stadium is even aware that Kyle Tucker's a new guy. You know what I mean? Like, there's no Kyle Tucker jerseys. There's no Kyle Tucker fan club. There's no nothing. He just needs to show up and play. And I believe that he will. I just think that he's pressing on himself a little bit. It's not an external pressure. It's an internal pressure. Everybody wants to fit in and be the guy that helps the Dodgers win games. I believe that he will. I think he's a really good right fielder. I think he's done a good job out there. He's stolen a handful of bases along the way. He's just pressing at the plate. It's still very, very early, but he's a human being like the rest of us here. He wants to validate the reason they gave him all that money, and he's just out of sorts a little bit. He'll be all right.
Yeah, and there's always that adaptation process, that getting used to process of being with the new team, the way that things go down. But at the same time, I feel that this was one of the reasons that he chose the Dodgers. He's protected in that lineup where if he's not the one producing, he knows that it could be Shohei Ohtani. If Shohei Ohtani isn't on, he has Will Smith. If not, he has Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy, Andy Pajes this year, who's going absolutely crazy. He's got players all around where, like you said, he doesn't have that responsibility that he would have had if he had signed with any other team. I'm not just saying the Blue Jays, who were the ones that were on hot pursuit of him, that were trying to get him in his club, or any other high-priced team. Any team. With any team, he would be top 2, top 3 players. With the Dodgers, you actually have the question, top what is he? Because you got Shohei, you got Mookie Betts, you got Freddie Freeman, you got Will Smith, and right now you got Andy Pajes. He might be the 6th best player on this team right now. And that's why there's no pressure to be like, dude, if you don't produce, we're in real trouble.
There's no pressure to produce to win games, but like I said, there's pressure to produce between his own 2 ears. Like he's a major league professional player, and you can intellectually tell yourself, Dave Roberts can throw his arm over your shoulder and say, hey man, you got a squad here, just relax and let it happen. Much easier said than done. When you're stacking offers, when you're not hitting the ball hard, when you're used to being an elite major league player and all of a sudden you're not, you start to press. I don't care who you are. I don't care how good of a team you're on. That sure, you say, hey, let Shohei carry the water today. We know that you're going to do it for us later. Hey, don't worry about that. Teoscar Hernandez will hit a home run later in the lineup. We're all good. Yeah, but I haven't gotten a hit in 2 nights. I haven't hit the ball hard in a week, and that just eats you alive. No matter how much money you're making, you press, and I think that's what it is. The good news is, this stuff leaves as fast as it shows up. 1 or 2 hard hit balls, and he'll be right back where he believes he needs to be. I think that the fact that Dodger fans, I was out at Dodger Stadium on Sunday, and I didn't see a single Kyle Tucker jersey. Think about this for a second. Imagine if any other team in baseball signed a guy for $60 million a year. There would be a stadium full of his jersey, and people like Ohtani signed, everything was there, right? You added Yamamoto jerseys. Freddie Freeman's here for 5 minutes, Freeman jerseys. Kyle Tucker's like, eh. And it's just like there's an odd vibe of how little people are invested in him, which I think almost works against him in a weird way, because it's like, well, no, I'm one of these guys too. Let me go do my thing. And I just think he's pressing. He's a really good player. He's going to be just fine, but he's a person like the rest of us. And when it's not happening for you, you start to push it a little harder than you might otherwise.
And there's a couple of quotes from an article that Fabián Ardaya from The Athletic published yesterday about Kyle Tucker, that there's a little bit of disconnect because Tucker says he's just being himself, not trying to do too much. The coaching staff, on the other hand, Aaron Bates, the hitting coach, he said the following, and I quote, "I think he's probably trying a little bit hard." Meanwhile, Dave Roberts said, and I quote, "He's chasing a lot more down below for me. Typically, when guys chase, they're trying to do a little bit too much." So on one side of things, you see the coaches seeing things one way and the player looking at it the other. But like we said, new team, big contract, stacked lineup. Even if you don't feel pressure, it's there. Now let's see what he can do after two and a half weeks wearing Dodger blue.
Kyle Tucker can tell me he doesn't feel pressure. I don't believe him. No one from the outside or from the inside is going to say, "Oh, the pressure's eating me alive." I don't know what I mean. It's the outside guys, the guys that see it every day, the guys that have played against you in another team, the guys that can kind of just look at it disemotionally and say, no, that's a pitch he doesn't swing at. That's a ball that he wouldn't actually go for. That's a ball that usually square up and instead he fouls it off or whatever it is. That the player himself, my hand's in the air, right? That anytime somebody says, "Oh, you're in this sort of position," no, I'm not. No, I'm not doing that. And you kind of know that you are. You just don't want to admit it. He's off. He'll get on, and I don't worry about him at all. He's too good of a player. We've still only played about 3 weeks of the season or so. There's still a million miles to go. He's way off, but he won't be for long.
Yeah, that's the good news, that this isn't a mechanical panic mode that the Dodgers are in. It's simply timing, rhythm, approach, and those things usually correct themselves, especially for a player with his track record. So this isn't a red flag, but it's something to watch, because if he settles in, oh boy, can you imagine this lineup with a Kyle Tucker that's playing at a very high level? I can't wait to see that, because so far, look at that, 12-4, Dodgers, best record in the big leagues without Mookie Betts in the lineup, with Kyle Tucker not producing as we were expecting. Let's see what ends up happening when everything is firing in all cylinders. So my question to close the segment, do you think Kyle Tucker is pressing right now, or is this just a normal early season adjustment? Drop it in the comments or hit me on social media. I'm curious where you stand. All right, that'll do it for today's pod. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. We'll be back tomorrow, Wednesday, as the Dodgers go for their 4th consecutive series win as they send Yoshinobu Yamamoto to the mound against the Mets. Will he make his best Justin Wrobleski impression? We'll see. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Dodgers ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to LockedOnDodgers.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Baseball as you gear up for the MLB season. We appreciate you riding with us. Until next time, keep it real. Keep it Dodger Blue.